Have you ever felt like your life is being sabotaged by unseen forces? That something beyond what you can see is hindering your blessings? Have you noticed that everything starts out well in your life, but mysteriously falls apart just when things were looking up? If so, pay close attention to what I'm going to reveal to you today, because what you are about to discover is not theories or speculation. It is a direct revelation from the spiritual world left behind by one of the most enlightened mystics in the entire history of Catholic Church, Saint Teresa of Avila. This woman wasn't just an ordinary nun. She was a soul wrapped in ecstasy, someone who walked the earth but lived with her eyes fixed on heaven. Saint Teresa saw the invisible, heard the inaudible, felt what very few could bear to feel, and from her comes the most shocking revelation you'll hear today. 3 simple words, yet charged with heavenly fire. 3 words that break curses, undo spiritual oppression, and rebuild the lives of those who speak them with true faith. And before you finish watching this video, you'll not only know them, but you'll learn exactly how to use them to break any spiritual chains that bind you. Look, if you feel like there's a blockage in your life, if you pray, try, fight, but nothing breaks this vicious cycle. If your relationships fall apart without explanation, if opportunities slip through your fingers like fine sand, if your dreams die before they even mature, it's time for you to pay attention. Because those words you're about to learn aren't magic formulas, they're spiritual keys revealed by a soul who saw the spiritual world with their own eyes, and whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. Have you ever wondered if there might be a spiritual curse operating in your life? A hidden force? An invisible influence sabotaging your path? Many people ignore this, thinking it's exaggerated. But Saint Teresa, with the authority of being declared a doctor of the Church, did not ignore it. On the contrary, she wrote something that should make us reflect deeply. When a soul surrenders to the Lord, it becomes a threat to hell, and hell doesn't stand idly by. That means the battle is real, brother, sister, but more importantly, victory is possible. But to win, you need to know the right weapons. And Saint Teresa left one of those weapons hidden in her mystical writings. Just as a simple key can open the most complex treasure chest, these 3 words can break the most ancient spiritual chains. But before revealing these powerful words to you, we need to understand something fundamental: the power of the spoken word in the spiritual world. The Bible already said it clearly. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and Saint Teresa confirms this with her mystical experience. One word spoken in prayer, if it's filled with love, is worth more than 1,000 empty repetitions. Therefore, when you know what these words are and why they have this supernatural power, don't say them just for the sake of it. Tell them with burning faith. Tell them with your heart on fire. Tell them with the conviction that you're stepping on the head of the serpent that has been chasing you for years. Write to me in the comments. I want to know the secret. If you're ready for this revelation that can change your life forever, because what Saint Teresa recorded is not just wisdom, it's a weapon of spiritual warfare, and today you're going to learn how to use it. Imagine this scene. You wake up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, with a strange feeling in your chest. It's not anxiety, it's not fear, it's something deeper, as if something invisible were watching you. You've gotten up, you've prayed, but that heavy feeling won't go away. Does that sound familiar? Or maybe it's something else. You work hard, you try hard, you do everything right, but just when things are about to get better, something inexplicable happens. The business you were looking forward to collapses. The relationship that seemed perfect ends suddenly. The job you had secured vanishes, and you're left wondering, why does this always happen to me? If any of these situations sound familiar, you're not imagining things and you're not crazy. What you're experiencing are clear signs that spiritual forces are working against your destiny. In her mystical experiences, Saint Teresa of Avila identified very specific patterns that reveal when a soul is under spiritual attack. And these patterns are more common than you might imagine. The first sign is what she called the cycles of destruction. Have you noticed that everything in your life starts out well but mysteriously falls apart? Your projects fail just before they succeed. Your relationships break up without a clear explanation. Your plans are ruined at the last minute. This isn't bad luck, brother. It's a sign of spiritual warfare. The second sign is recurring disturbing dreams. Saint Teresa wrote, The enemy seeks to disturb the rest of the soul because a rested soul is a strong soul. If you have constant nightmares, dreams where you're being chased, where everything goes wrong, or where you feel an evil presence, pay attention. Your spirit is being attacked while you sleep. The third sign is oppression. Explainable. Have you ever been in a place and suddenly felt as if the air became heavy? Have you felt a deep sadness for no apparent reason? A feeling that something bad is going to happen? Saint Teresa experienced this many times and discovered that it wasn't common depression. It was spiritual oppression. The fourth sign, these are interruptions during prayer. If every time you try to pray or meditate, something distracts you. If you feel aversion to the things of God, if your mind fills with negative thoughts just when you're seeking peace, it's a clear sign. The enemy fears your connection with the divine and will do everything possible to disrupt it. The fifth sign is unexplained health problems, pain that comes and goes, extreme fatigue with no physical cause, ailments that no doctor can explain. Saint Teresa herself experienced this and discovered that many illnesses have spiritual roots. Do you recognize any of these signs in your life? How many of them have you experienced? If it's more than one sister, brother, it's time to take this seriously because what you're experiencing is not normal and definitely not a coincidence. Saint Teresa not only identified these patterns, but she discovered something even more disturbing. These signs don't appear by chance. They appear when a soul is destined for great things, when God has special plans for that person. The enemy attacks precisely those who pose a threat to his plans. Have you ever wondered why you're going through this? Why does it seem like the world is conspiring against you? The answer may surprise you. Because you have such a great purpose that hell has taken notice and decided to attack you before you discover your true power. But here's the beautiful thing about all this. If you're being spiritually attacked, it means you're important in God's plan. And if you are important in God's plan, then you also have access to the most powerful spiritual weapons to defend yourself. Saint Teresa understood this perfectly, and that's why in the darkest moments of her own spiritual battle she received the revelation that would change everything. But before I tell you about that revelation, you need to understand exactly how these invisible forces that have been attacking you operate. What I'm about to reveal to you now may be disturbing, but you need to know it. Saint Teresa of Avila wrote something that should make us reflect deeply. When a soul surrenders to the Lord, it becomes a threat to hell. And hell doesn't just stand idly by. This means there is an invisible spiritual world that operates parallel to ours. And in that world, there are forces that have decided that your success, your peace, and your blessing are a threat to their plans. That's why they attack you in ways you don't even suspect. Spiritual curses aren't like they're portrayed in movies. They don't always involve strange rituals or obvious supernatural things. Most of the time they operate silently, sabotaging your life in ways that seem completely normal. The first way is through inherited curses. Saint Teresa discovered that many destructive patterns are passed down from generation to generation. If your family has repetitive stories of failure, divorce, illness, poverty, or premature death, it's no coincidence. These are spiritual patterns that are inherited like genes. Have you noticed that everyone in your family suffers from the same things, that no one succeeds, that women always end up alone, or that men always fail in business? These are family curse patterns that need to be broken. The second way is through words spoken in hate. The Bible is clear. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. When someone curses you with true anger, when someone tells you to never be happy or to have bad times in life with true hatred in their heart, those words have spiritual power. Saint Teresa experienced this firsthand. There were people who hated her for her devotion to God, who wished her harm, who spoke against her with venom in their hearts, and she felt the spiritual weight of those words until she learned to defend herself. The third way is through envy and what we popularly know as the evil eye. When someone deeply envies you, when they yearn for what you have with a heart filled with resentment, that negative energy is directed toward you like a spiritual arrow. Have you noticed that when things are going well, inexplicable problems suddenly appear? That after sharing good news with certain people, everything starts to go wrong? It's not paranoia, sister. It's real spiritual warfare. The fourth way is through spiritually contaminated objects and spaces. Saint Teresa was very careful about the objects she allowed in her cell, because she knew that certain objects can carry negative energies. Gifts given with bad intentions, objects related to the occult, even photos or letters from people who hate you can become entry points for evil influences. I'm going to tell you something that Saint Teresa recorded in her writings. Once she was deep in prayer when she felt a terrible oppression. She couldn't breathe. The atmosphere became heavy. She felt as if invisible forces were attacking her, but she didn't back down. She knelt, closed her eyes and spoke 3 simple but powerful words. And in that same instant, the whole atmosphere changed. The air was purified, peace returned, light filled the place. She wrote in her journal, "I spoke 3 words and felt as if chains had been broken around me." Do you know why it worked? Because Saint Teresa understood something most people don't. Every curse is based on 3 fundamental pillars: fear, guilt, and doubt. When these 3 pillars are present in your life, curses have fertile ground to operate. Fear paralyzes you and prevents you from making the right decisions. Guilt makes you feel you deserve punishment. Doubt prevents you from believing you can be free. As long as these 3 elements dominate your heart, the forces of evil will have power over your life. But when you speak certain words with true faith, when you say them with total conviction, these 3 pillars crumble, and with them, all evil's influence over your destiny. How many of these patterns do you recognize in your life? Do you feel like you've been the victim of hateful words? Have you noticed destructive patterns repeating themselves in your family? Share them in the comments, because when we recognize the problem, we're already halfway to the solution. Saint Teresa wasn't content with merely identifying these evil forces. She sought ways to defeat them, and what she discovered in her mystical encounters with the divine would change not only her life, but the lives of millions of people who would later learn her secret. What I'm about to tell you now is one of the most powerful mystical episodes in the life of Saint Teresa of Avila. A moment that forever changed her understanding of the power of words and faith. A moment that gave us the 3 most powerful words against all spiritual curses. It was the year 1560. Saint Teresa had been experiencing increasingly intense spiritual attacks. It wasn't just the disturbing visions or feelings of oppression. It was something deeper and more terrifying. She felt as if invisible forces were trying to rob her of her faith, her peace, even her sanity. That particular night she had spent hours in prayer in her convent cell. But instead of finding the peace she always found in prayer, she felt the opposite. The air became heavy, as if an evil presence had invaded the sacred space. First, it was a feeling of intense cold, even though it was summer in Avila. Then, a tightness in her chest that made it difficult to breathe. Finally, whispering voices filled her with thoughts of hopelessness, guilt, and abandonment by God. Saint Teresa wrote about this moment. "I felt as if all the forces of hell had gathered in my cell. It wasn't imagination, it was a spiritual reality as tangible as the ground beneath my feet. But this is where the story becomes extraordinary. Instead of fleeing, instead of giving in to terror, Saint Teresa knelt, closed her eyes, and in the midst of that spiritual battle, began to search not for her own words, but for the words that heaven would place on her lips. It was then that she heard, not with her physical ears, but with the ears of her soul, a gentle but powerful voice telling her, "My daughter, when you can't take it anymore, when the forces of evil surround you, when you feel that all is lost, say these 3 words with all your heart." And the voice revealed to her the 3 words that would change her life forever. Saint Teresa spoke them immediately, not as a whisper but as a proclamation. She said them with such ardent faith that she felt as if her entire soul had been engulfed in a flame of divine confidence. And what happened next defies rational explanation. She wrote, "The very instant I uttered those 3 words, the whole atmosphere changed. It was as if 1,000 chains had been broken around me. The oppression disappeared. The cold vanished. The malicious voices fell silent. and a golden light, more beautiful than sunlight, filled my cell. But the revelation didn't end there. That same heavenly voice explained to him why those 3 words had so much power. He said, "Every curse is built on fear, guilt, and doubt. But these 3 words destroy those 3 pillars at once. The first word invokes the name that is above every name, the name before which every knee bows in heaven, on earth, and under the earth. The second word is an act of total surrender, of complete surrender, of abandoning all pretense of human control. The third word directs that surrender toward the right source, toward the one who has all the power to change any situation." Saint Teresa immediately understood that she had received not just a prayer, but a spiritual weapon, a key that opened the gates of heaven and closed the gates of hell on her life. From that night on, whenever she felt any form of spiritual attack, she would utter those 3 words, and every time, without exception, victory was instantaneous. Not only that, but she began teaching them to the other nuns in the convent, and they experienced the same extraordinary results. Years later, another saint, Saint Faustina Kowalska, would receive similar revelations about the power of these same words. But it was Saint Teresa who first received them, who first tested them in the fires of spiritual battle, who first confirmed their supernatural power. Are you ready to learn these 3 words? Are you prepared to receive the spiritual weapon that Saint Teresa used to defeat every form of curse and oppression? Because I warn you, these words are not a magic formula. They don't work simply because you say them. They work when you say them with the same burning faith that Saint Teresa had that night. They work when you say them with the total conviction that the person listening has all the power to change your situation. Do you feel that anticipation in your heart? Do you feel like something is about to change in your life, because the revelation that will change everything is just seconds away? The time has come. After centuries of keeping it hidden in the mystical writings of Saint Teresa, after having freed countless souls from spiritual chains, I am going to reveal to you the most powerful secret against all curses. The 3 words Saint Teresa received directly from heaven are, "Jesus, I trust in you." Yes, it's that simple, that powerful. You might be thinking, but I've heard those words before. Yes, you've heard them. But have you ever spoken them with burning faith, declared them with all your soul in a moment of spiritual oppression, used them as a weapon in the battle for your destiny? Because herein lies the secret that Saint Teresa discovered. It's not just what you say, but how you say it, when you say it, and with what faith you say it, that determines the power of these words. Let's analyze each word separately so you understand the spiritual power you are releasing. Jesus, this is the name above every name. The Bible says that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth. When you say this name with faith, you are invoking all the power of heaven. You are calling upon the one who conquered death, hell, and every evil force. I trust. This word is an act of spiritual warfare. When you say, "I trust" in the midst of a curse, you are doing 3 things simultaneously. First, you are destroying fear, because you cannot have fear and trust at the same time. Second, you are destroying guilt, because you are surrendering your entire past, present, and future to the one who has the power to forgive and transform. Third, you are destroying doubt, because trust is the opposite of self-doubt. These 2 words direct all your faith toward the right source. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust other people. You don't trust in luck or amulets. You trust specifically in the one who has all the power to change any situation, Jesus Christ. Saint Teresa explained, "Every curse is sustained by fear, guilt, and doubt. But when you say, 'Jesus, I trust in you,' with true faith, these 3 pillars crumble, and with them all evil's influence over your life." Do you understand now why these words are so powerful? It's not magic, it's pure faith applied with spiritual precision. But there's something else you need to know. Saint Teresa discovered that the way you pronounce these words is crucial. Don't whisper them. Don't say them like a mechanical prayer. Proclaim them, declare them, speak like someone stepping on the head of the serpent that has been chasing you for years. Let's do it right now. Stand up if you can. Take a deep breath and proclaim with me with all the strength of your faith. Jesus, I trust in you. Did you feel anything? Did you feel as if something heavy had been lifted from your shoulders? Did you feel peace where there had once been anxiety? That's not imagination, it's real spiritual liberation. Saint Teresa taught that these words should become your daily declaration. Say them upon waking as a shield that protects you throughout the day. Say them before sleeping to protect your rest against nightmares and night attacks. Say them every time you feel oppressed, every time something tries to steal your peace. But there is something more. Saint Teresa recommended saying these words while touching a sacred object, a crucifix, a medal of Saint Benedict, or a rosary.